So, I hope that it's been interesting to hear you guys talk right now. What I want to, maybe the way to kick off this part of our talk is, and this is where we just talk and brainstorm, and I'm going to try to drag people into the conversation, but I don't think I'll have to do much dragging. What are your frustrations right now? What could we brainstorm here? In customer or market?
My frustration is that local people don't get their support in local businesses. They go to Bristol many times.
I sat in a meeting, Buzz, I think I told you this story, I'm pretty sure I told you again. About a year ago, I was in Norton, and there were some economic development people, and it was a North Carolina marketing firm that actually got up and said, "You're not losing business to the Tri-Cities." They said this in Norton. Now, they based that on some sort of a zip code survey, and I just know anecdotally that's not true. It's where people go and shop. It just is. And I know, Jen, I don't think it's something, it's almost like what to think about is not how to fight it, but how to leverage it. I think and see, I think you guys here in St. Paul have you have a story, going back to some of this, that you could tell to get people here. I think you're closer to Abingdon. Bristol can get here fairly quickly. I think you could be a destination for them.
Well, we are. That's what keeps us going.
Are you losing that? Do you feel like if you had that local business, it would make a difference?
I think it would help every small business to have local people appreciate them for what they are and to put their dollars there instead of taking it away to somewhere else. So I think it would help us, it would help every business in here. And it might make the difference between staying open and closing. But people just, it's like when you put out word, well, we're going out of business. This is with Daily Hardware. We're going out of business. People say, well, I hate that. Well, where have you been? You never came in one time, so you must not hate it too bad.
Well, the flip side of that is I have friends in Big Stone that have a restaurant, and they'll be sitting in a meeting and somebody will go, what we really need here is a fine restaurant.
Yes.
And they'll be like, well, first of all, that's going to solve all the problems in the town, and it's not. But so, do we ever sit around and talk about why people are going to Bristol and Kingsport?
Yeah, a little bit.
What do you think?
Well, I'll speak directly to the brewery. I think their beer is good. I think their food is good, and I think their prices are good.
Yep.
Okay.
Their burgers, world class.
World class. There's really not a lot to throw a rock at. But so many people feel that they've got to go somewhere, and then they go somewhere, and then they go to a movie, or they go and they shop at Sam's, or so it's not just a destination to eat over there. They go and do 2 or 3 other things, then they say, well, we're going to eat out, so we're going to eat at Joe Blow's. And then they come home and they say, well, we've already eaten out once this week, so we're not going to eat at the brewery. And
that's what I keep saying is we're at the beginning of St. Paul actually bringing people in. We're at the beginning, and it's hard at the beginning.
It's very hard. And
we need other things here.
We've got a situation where we've got entrepreneurs who don't want to go into business because we don't have a big enough crowd. And, we're all out here trying to build a big enough crowd because, to get other people here to experience my place or your place, or the tourists aren't going to become looking for flooring unless you get some repurposed wood, which is something you and the Gibsons might want to talk about. That would be something you all could talk about, is repurposed flooring. They could make it and you could sell it. Or they could sell it themselves, but that's something. We're going to feed off of you guys. You're going to have to sell the nails for the repurposed flooring or something. But you've got a gold mine. You're the only one in town. I got to go down there and pay all those high prices you got.
I'm the cheapest in town.
You're also the most expensive in town.
That's a good way to look at it.
Cheapest sounds better.
I know. But
That's hilarious. This is like an episode of
yeah, but so we're all a little bit different.
Let you come back.
I know, because it's cheaper to go to you than to go later.
See?
I was strict.
Convenience.
But a lot of people don't realize what you can get or that you have, and I don't think they take into account, you've got to run all the Bristol, but you're running out gas also, so I mean.
How do you know they don't look
I can get anything that you get at
But
Lowe's.
see, this is where I am with this. I remember hearing this when I was a kid.
Hey, Jane,
Yeah, so it's kind of like,
you ain't been a kid a long time.
that's right, it's been a long time. Well, I'm not gonna say that out loud, but, no, but I'm just.
Let me tell you two true stories. There's a doctor's wife in Abingdon, and a lot of people didn't really think a lot about her because she's sort of a snob. And there's this lady who had an Irish store, and she'd go to Ireland and she would buy a lot of stuff and bring it in. You got true Irish stuff there. So she walks into the ladies' store one day and says, "Oh, I have that sweater. I bought it in Dublin." Yes, and she said, "I just bought it last week." So she was so proud of buying it in Dublin. And as opposed to, she could have bought it right there in Abingdon, and she didn't. Well, I had a ladies' store in Kingsport, and I found out real quickly, and I'm going to throw off on you ladies, that a lot of the ladies, if they lived in Kingsport, they had to buy it in Knoxville. And the same brand, I bought it in Knoxville. The damn ladies in Knoxville, you can cut that one. The ladies in Knoxville had to go to Atlanta to buy it, the same product. So, it's the...
So it's psychology. Okay. No, well, yeah, you started something though, which is good. It's like, knowing that this is not going to change, and it's been at least 60 or 70 years in the running, I look at it this way, and if I'm being naive, tell me, but I look at St. Paul, and I think you guys have your act together. It's kind of like, forget the locals.
That's what we've had to do.
Yeah.
We have some very faithful locals.
You won't have to, because you've got a different market going.
I got a different market,
But at some point, you're.
but I still need to feed off of his motel.
Yes.
And I still,
Right.
I still have to feed.
Right. So, but the larger thing is, don't feel guilty for not focusing on that local market. Because if you focus on these other segments, that message is going to trickle out to the locals. But if you put time and energy into trying to get them, and that was as succinct and accurate a description of as any that I've heard. Because my mother had that shop with the candles.
Five Sisters.
Yeah,
Whatever about that name.
But it was the same thing. It was the total same thing. There's a cachet to saying, "Oh, I bought this in New York," or "Oh, I bought this in Chattanooga," and so.
I never heard Chattanooga. Okay.
Or Atlanta.
That's why I think we have to go unique.
Differentiate.
And we need more, the more businesses, the better. I tried this 20
been nearly 25 years ago. Moved home from Knoxville, quit a job, came here to St. Paul, opened a bed and breakfast with a little restaurant. And now, 20-some years later, I still have people, when they realize what I did, oh, I remember eating there, that was wonderful, whatever happened, the same thing.
Yeah.
20-some years later, people tell me how great it was, but they would come once a year for,
Right.
once the whole time I was open for a 30th anniversary, or once a year for
I think you were
Valentine's
ahead
Day.
of your time. I
Well,
think you could do it.
But it's also a traffic thing, and the reality is, we don't have the people traffic on the sidewalks. They're gonna pop in. We just don't, and we, you know what, I'm not sure we want it, because I can tell you right now, I'm a year and a half in, and I still, driving over here today, I'm like, I love driving, because there's a quality of life here. So it's kind of like, how do we calibrate this so that the quality of life doesn't change too much? And I just think it's time to stop, for all of us to stop worrying about local patronage. And all I'm saying is that I think you're in a better position than some of the other towns in Wise County to do that.
I agree.
Well,
I really
you can put a new store in anywhere you want, okay? But you can't have an ATV trail. Now, we've got to get the ATV trails better. We've got to get them longer. You can't move the Clinch River. And you're pretty much centrally located for the motorcycle trails that I created several years ago. That's being heavily marketed. We're not getting our full share, but we are, we're trying. But we, so there are certain things that we have over the other areas, and what we have to do is we have to get them to come and stay, and then we have to, go small steps and try to get, a few supporting things to support everybody, and then, once you get a few of them, I mean, like we need to be concentrating on the river. It was great the first year or two that Terry and Rock said that, I mean, I was really rocking. I don't know how you've been doing. We now have, and a lot of people don't do this, and this is what I'm trying to do, is there are 2 national publications. Now, forget you, me, and Tom, Dick, and Harry, and all these Virginia tourism people that say the Clinch is great. I've got 2 fly fishing books, each that thick, with 3 pages to 5 pages about how great fishing the Clinch River is. And that's what we've got to take to promote it for our fishermen.
Okay, so sorry to interrupt, but sparking another idea. Take excerpts out of those publications, and every one of you put it on your Facebook page, and schedule it every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks. Talk about somebody else in the community. Don't just talk about your business. Amplify somebody else. Talk about what, and there's a musician that lives in Big Stone Gap, and he's starting a political career for himself. His name is Tyler Hughes, banjo. And he, just to give you an example, on his Instagram feed and in Facebook, and probably on Twitter, he's talked about a musician African-American musician, tied it to Black History Month, that lived in Big Stone Gap.
The guy at the plaque.
Right. Is it Carl Jones? He's in front of the Harry Meadow Museum. But you only do that about St. Paul for now. You can do that for the rest of the county, but for St. Paul, talk about the Clinch River and the fact that it's one of the second most pure river ecosystem in the world, right? Isn't it in the world?
Now in America.
All of those, you've got a story to tell, and you're also packaging it really in the right way. And I'm firmly convinced that if it becomes a destination for other people, the locals will it's just, but it's a psychology that we cannot dismantle at this point. And to try is wasted effort, I think. Now, the tourism thing too, that there's a flip side to that. It's like, we got a lot of taxpayer money going into that, and the delivery, I know, I hear this from everybody, is people want better delivery of it. This customer thing tied to social media is the least expensive, most creative way to build an audience, to do that. And you know, Dan leads as at our bank, and the whole way I wound up inside the bank was I helped with social media before, as a consulting project. And what we've discovered is when we amplify what's happening, and we don't talk about the bank, we'll talk about our customers sometimes, but we try to find the things that are happening within our footprint, which is from West Virginia down to Northeast Tennessee, and kind of everything in between. It's like we're the size of New Jersey footprint-wise, so we had to consider all of that. You actually have an advantage that you're contained, and yeah, maybe you could do Wise County if there's something good. You know, the Trail of Lonesome Pine is getting the drama is getting a major shot in the arm right now. But only do if it helps for the next year. Only do things that help St. Paul.
And really, if this many people would do it,
you help each other,
make a difference.
You help each other, and then you can, in the second year, you can expand to everybody. I'm not saying don't do anything, but think about it. And the good news is that we are finding that a small part of my job is economic development and understanding what's happening. We are talking to people in Kentucky and Tennessee and West Virginia about Appalachia and what we have to offer culturally. And there are some great minds on this right now. This is what's so encouraging. And I think they're looking for success stories. I just, you know, the biggest thing I want to tell you is bigger than any of this is that ever since I've been back in Virginia, I've been like fixated on St. Paul and what you guys are pulling off. And sometimes when we're right in the middle of it, we don't see what we're accomplishing, and we think about, oh, he hacked me off last week, I'm not talking to him this week. Well, which is okay, that's small town stuff. But the bigger picture is, you're doing it. You're getting in a room, you're not ripping each other's heads off all the time, and you're figuring out how you can work together. But do it yourselves. You know, this is Mary's opinion. We are living in a grant-obsessed society right now because the money is in the government's hands. Okay? Now, if we can get at it and redeploy it, and, you know, in my family, I've had people that have done projects that have redeployed the money back into the community. That's great. But there's an assumption that if you take grant money, you're skimming off the top to pay yourself. Why even, you know, you guys aren't doing that. If you've taken grant money, you're redeploying it, the people in this room. So help set an example of the entrepreneur, the American Appalachian entrepreneur. And let's not rely on the tourism mafia to get this story out. You don't have to. You've got Facebook. You've got Twitter. You've got Appalachia, which is hot. Appalachia is hot right now. And so but we've got, you know, a year from now, we'll be in danger of losing the ownership of the story. We're going to be Hillbilly Elegy and not St. Paul, Virginia. And I'm not throwing shade on him. I think he did a service by writing that book. It's helped cast attention here, but now that the attention's on us, it doesn't have to be about the war on poverty anymore. The message doesn't have to be we need help. The message is we've got something here for you. And all I'm saying is I think St. Paul can be a hub of that. I really do.
I think
Is
that's
that right,
what we're, yes, I think that's what we're working toward. We do want to make it a destination for other people, but we certainly want the quality of life for the people who have chosen to live here to be the best it can be. And I think we're at the beginning, like Jennifer said, we're beginning to get back to that point, and the train is leaving. If the naysayers want to be left on the side of the road, then we're going on without them, and it'll come to them eventually.
Well, no, we really need just to run over them and shut them up.
Well, that's productive.
That's the general business.
There will always
That's repurposing money.
There will always be naysayers. I mean, that's just something you have to ignore like a barking dog.
Don't you think that part of this is it's hard for people? I say this to people from out of the area. You want to talk about identity politics? How about the way this nation has spat on the identity of the coal miner, right? And so there are people that don't have the vision that you guys have. They have another vision, maybe. Their lives are different. Whose very being is tied up with defining themselves as a coal miner, coming from a coal mining family. That is hard to shake. And they're going to have to. The way they're going to have to redefine themselves is by watching the example of those who have the strength and the perseverance to do it. That's what's going to lift them. All I'm saying is that focusing on what's not, and you're not doing this, but this concept of trying to bring people along from within the community who just are not going to do it. It is taking good time that you have. You guys are getting it. It's that worrying about them is going to, and I know why you're worried. It's not about your business. It's about getting people to participate in this ecosystem. Some of them are only going to do it when they see the success.
Yeah, that's true.
But we also have another problem in that we've lost 20% of our population. A lot of that 20% are the youth and the middle age and the school age.
Right.
So the people who would be looking to start new businesses, they're mostly gone. And the people who have the disposable income or who may go out and eat, they're just not going out because the money's, our economy is not healthy, and there's not a strong middle class anywhere for us to go out and support restaurants.
But Buzz, the thing you're doing here in St. Paul is you're creating a hub, a moment in Wise County where it's a good place to live.
Yeah.
It's a good place to eat. It's a good place to have visitors come that you can put in your place or over there or wherever that is. What's happening here is
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's the way it is.
It's the way it is.
And that's why we shouldn't. And that's why we shouldn't. As you say, try to concentrate on in some of our markets. We shouldn't concentrate on trying to attract the local people.
Right.
But I also think there are some people like Josh and myself, we're 40. We grew up here.
I know, right? We're so old.
Jonathan said you were 28 last week.
Who did?
Whatever.
My new best friend, basically, when we grew up, we were just talking, Melissa was talking about that. We went on some dates to the Greystone Manor and ate dinner there together.
Wow.
We were teenagers.
But we did too. We took our family.
But that's about the only local thing there was. And when we were young, we went on a date. He came and picked me up. We went to Bristol, and we went to Kingsport or somewhere, and then we ate dinner, went to a movie, those type of things. And it's hard to get out of that mentality. When you're in that habit of, for how many years since St. Paul is a bustling town, all the people who went out to dinner or who did things, they went places away from here. And it's really just been probably, I think, since we had children, that we have become more, first because it was convenient and just, oh my gosh, I'm not taking any screaming children out anywhere. But more it became, well, we want our town to be better. And, you know, basically, we eat here.
Yeah.
You know, very rarely do we go out anywhere besides St. Paul or Castlewood to eat or anything like that, because if we can't buy it on Amazon Prime, we buy it in town. I mean, vice versa, if I can't buy it in town, I buy it in
And
town.
Buzz, this may be a case study, and here's a customer persona, by the way. That right there is a customer persona. If you were gonna get into that and build out customer personas, you could use these guys maybe as. I think what's interesting about what you're saying is, we moved here when I was 9 years old. I remember when I was 4 years old, hanging over the front seat, because at that time it was all one big front seat. I know. And we were driving into like Allentown or Easton, Pennsylvania. It was before we moved here, and I'm like, what is this place? And my dad's like, it's the city. And I'm like, I'm gonna live in the city. And so from the time I was a kid, I was gonna live in the city, right? And I did it. The biggest shock of my life is coming here and living here and having the experience I want. And to what you're talking about is, I just, you know, the farthest I would come would be St. Paul to eat when I was bunking in Big Stone Gap, and now I moved to Abingdon because I work in Bristol. I eat in Abingdon, or I will make a special trip to go to places of people I know whose business I want to patronize. But the point I'm trying to make is 40 is very young. I feel like I feel like the age group of people from 40 on up through 50, 60, and 70 is still vibrant, and they want an experience, and they will drive. I think we could, you know, we could attract a lot of people here. Adri had, my sister, when she did the film Big Stone Gap, one of the actors said to her, I don't know how I do it, but I go home with more money. I don't spend any money. His point being, it doesn't cost anything. Our quality, you can spend a lot of money here, but you don't, it's not hurting you to spend it. Whereas if you want to go out for a nice dinner in the city, it's $100 at any one of the cities anymore, because of all the taxes and all that kind of stuff. And I remember the first time I ate in your restaurant, I'm like, I ordered the burger, grass-fed beef, that was not flown in. It was driven in, maybe came over on horseback, I don't know. But I don't know who I was eating with. I said, this is a world-class hamburger. This is as good a hamburger as you will find in any city in this country. And that's what's changing. And so that's why I'm hopeful that we're going to attract enough people who want that kind of lifestyle without changing our lifestyle too much. The thing is, it's like dating, not that I do that well, but you chase the wrong thing. It's like, hey, I'm the prize. St. Paul's the prize. You know, you come here and eat, and you come here and go shopping, and you come here and walk down the street. That's it. You guys, your downtown is still pretty intact. It's not, it doesn't look like it's been bombed out. You know, that's huge. And you'll, you know, somehow you have to figure out how to leverage. This is the marketer in me. You got to leverage this whole Milton situation for a while. You know, as a town, somehow you got to amplify that. I have a feeling that there's going to be, my guess would be there'll be some press descending. And not just for when he opens, but like the shishi poo poo reviewers. And that's the kind of stuff, like if somebody from Food and Wine comes here, or whatever those magazines are, Bon Appetit.
Well, they're having an employee kind of appreciation dinner Thursday night. They're having a big shot dinner Friday night. And
you going to that one, Buzz?
I wasn't invited. I'm just a little shocked.
You can come to the brewery.
I
We'll be a
know,
big shot there.
I know that,
We know it's a big shot there.
part of the people coming Friday night are food critics.
From where?
I don't know, I'll tell you Saturday morning.
Was that creep from the crime once in
Cobra, did it Cobra?
The Elkin party.
Southwest Virginia.
No, it was the lady, one of them is the lady who spoke at, when we had the big fanfare down on the street. What was that called, Kathy? Kathy?
The Feastable.
The Feastable.
Oh, that's a good name.
Yeah, the Feastable. It was Ronnie Lundy, she's coming, she was the main speaker. And then, two others.
So,
At least.
I hit up those tourism people to do some Facebook advertising. Spend some of that to do Facebook advertising about St. Paul, around all the grand opening festivities and any other big events. I put a phone call in and go, hey, and you know, we're not talking $10,000, we're talking maybe $500, and do some targeted advertising on Facebook, and then they can use you, if you do posts about it, and you know, welcome, we're glad you're here, and it's also, how do you say, welcome to the experience St. Paul is creating for visitors. Well, you know, it's that. You have, what's the experience you have when you come to St. Paul? You're warmly welcome, you're well fed, you get to stay in a nice place, you have fun, you can go to some great stores.
No, we don't have any great store here.
What? We're working on it. We have a right, 3 or 4 right here in this room.
And even
Just straight
online.
up confused.
We also didn't have any place to stay till the hotel opened, did we, Buzz?
No.
And we hold no more tickets for you now. One thing, I've not heard anybody mention of this, this in no way is throwing a wrench at anything.
No.
It's just not, it's just.
Realism.
It's just a subject. But, you know, I can remember as a kid, I know you can, Kathy, but you couldn't see the St. Paul parade because there were too many people on the streets.
Wow, really?
Really? Every street in town. And, you know, there's a reality, and I walked out, I asked Bob where he was tonight. I said, why have you not been in there? He said, I've been to a planning commission. I said,
Oh, was
well,
that fun? Was it more fun than this?
I said, that's it.
It was, wasn't it?
It's important. But, you know,
It's critical. It's critical.
the one thing is that our area is not doing it this time, and we can't retail that part away, is it's not producing any money. And I'm not saying this to make it sound bad. We're not building something,
Right.
mining something, bringing something out of the ground, building furniture, or any of the things that we have done. And so, therefore, at some point, we lost our school, which is, you know, how important schools are. So I think it's going to be a joint effort on more than just retailers to try to bring back some of the things we have to build a community from the bottom up.
So Jerry, a couple of things there, and since I'm standing here, I'm going to commandeer a little bit. First of all, I just saw an interesting editorial in the Richmond paper this week about, and this is no offense to planning commissions, where they said, where the Richmond Times-Dispatch called into question the need for economic development authorities by a county. What are we spending on it, and what's the return on the investment? That's the first thing. Secondly, the school thing. I understand that a community losing its school is devastating. My heart breaks my heart broke when they tore down the old Big Stone Gap elementary schools. That's how old I am, Buzz. You know, that I attended, and then Powell Valley. It's heart-wrenching. So, but how do you take the schools we have left and help them be a robust part of a larger community than just the town. Maybe the community is now the county. But the last thing I would tell you is that this goes back to how we're messaging. One of the things I've observed is that we have abdicated from the business community to what I call the agency class and the academic mafia. The role of raising money, attracting companies here, because they're grabbing the taxpayer dollars and then they're choking it. And they're doing things with it that a business person would never do, because they're not in the private sector. They only know how to do it the government way, the agency way, the academic way. What I'm trying to say is that, and this is not the answer, because your point is extremely well taken and it has to be part of this conversation, is how do we mitigate the effects of all that? The first thing to do is acknowledge and say realistically, we're not producing. So I'm going to read you something I found last year. October 2016, Governor McAuliffe came to the Southwest Virginia Museum in Big Stone Gap. I grew up on that hill, and I got a call from a state parks employee and said, Mary, Governor McAuliffe is going to be in Big Stone Gap on Sunday. Would you go over there and be part, and which I thought was very nice, just be part of the people there. You guys, I walked in there and there was nobody there. There were 3 or 4 people from the Big Stone Gap Town Council and the new town manager whose official day was the next day, the starting day. And I'm like, what's going on? And I said to somebody, where is everybody? And they said, oh, they're at the Municipal League convention in the Tidewater. Do you guys know what that Municipal League is?
Yeah.
Okay, it's for all the people who run the towns,
Yes.
and all the lobbyists who sell to them or get contracts from them, okay? And I am saying this all due respect. This is not, I'm not throwing shade on anybody. So I'm like, municipally. So that night I get home and I look it up. And I don't know if this is still on the website, but I copied it off their website. And this is about the league. So bear with me. An article written in the early 1930s by Newport News Mayor Samuel R. Buxton, the first president of the Municipal League, spelled out what the founders of the organization hoped to accomplish. Buxton described the League's mission as follows, 3 points. To bring into a united whole the several cities and sections of the Commonwealth for the larger glory of Virginia. To exchange ideas and experiences to secure a better administration of municipal affairs, great idea. And third, to secure helpful legislation. Okay, all sounds good, right? In the article, written in the 1930s, Buxton explained that in 1905, when the League was founded, the progress and development of Virginia was impeded by sectional selfishness and independence. Quote, the Great Southwest, that's what we call it, the Great Southwest, was the big bad wolf of whom the other sections of the state, from a political and economic standpoint, stood in awe. How come we never hear that? How come we're not telling people this? And how come we're not saying, we ponied up tax dollars for decades, yet we don't want your help, we want your investment. Make sure our kids in Lee County aren't collecting rainwater in buckets under a leaky roof. Instead of putting $34 million into economic development, put some of that in the schools. And we'll give you a return on this investment. Because you know what? We already did it. You're here because of what we did. Because we drilled down into the earth and lit this entire planet for decades. That's how we answer charity. We don't let them forget, and we remind them what we're capable of. And in fact, you know what? They might want to be doing this because they know we can do it. with just a little bit of zhuzhing and refocusing. They're a little afraid of us because they know better than we do what we've accomplished and what we have yet to accomplish. So we need to show them we're not the far Southwest. And I was in Richmond a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, we call you far Richmond. We're Virginia's great Southwest. You're far Richmond. What is that crap? Who came up with the far Southwest? And I keep seeing it in economic development things. Who does that? And I call them, I say it to them when I see somebody's produced a document they sent me and they call it the far Southwest, I call them and go, why are you doing this? This is bad branding. This is free, expensive advice. I used to be expensive. You know, this is like, you know, I don't want to be expensive. What?
Now you're just cheap.
No, now I'm frugal. Big difference.
I think the far Southwest thing came because so many people were saying, well, that Roanoke and Blacksburg were in Southwest Virginia.
I know that.
They're nothing like far Southwest Virginia. You know, the heart of Appalachia, they're nothing like that.
Right.
So,
Heart of Appalachia. Great phrase. Who uses it?
We do, I hear it.
Well, but this goes back to how do you spend your marketing dollar? How do you tell that story? And that's part of it. That's easy for me to say because again, there's an underneath to that. But Heart of Appalachia, focus on the Appalachia, own it. We have to own it. J.D. Vance told a story. That was his personal story. We have a lot of stories to tell. That's all I'm saying. I take this out at least once a week to read to myself. They were afraid of us. Not afraid. They weren't afraid. They thought we were great. And the other thing is, we got to tell them, I went to a play at UVA Wise a year ago. I think you've heard this story. And I'm sitting there, it was Our Town. You know that play by Thornton Wilder? It's like one of my favorite things, right? And there's this part in the play where where the stage manager turns to you and says, what would you put in a time capsule? So before the play starts, this professor gets up and says, welcome to University of Virginia's College of Wise. We're so happy to have Pro Art here. Pro Art introduced the arts to Wise County 20 years ago. I had two guys on either side from Big Stone Gap. They had to restrain me. I was so furious to hear someone at our own college spouting that crap. And so, excuse my using the word crap. Anyway, at that moment in the play, the guy turns and people answered, and I said, I got one for you. And he goes, what? The Trail of the Lonesome Pine by John Fox Jr., which was one of the world's first bestsellers, written in Big Stone Gap by a man from Kentucky who knew President Roosevelt, who dined with President Roosevelt. That's just one story of what we have of our story here. So we just have to start telling it, that's all. And thanks you guys for I need to get this out.
Balmer's book.
Who?
The one we got.
Oh, Ramp Hollow?
Yeah.
You did, no, I told
I'm
you that.
halfway
You got
through
it.
it. I'm halfway through it. Tell me.
How is it? Were you reading? I haven't read it.
Oh, I'm only halfway through it. I don't know enough to tell.
This guy, so this is the good thing about J.D. Vance and Hillbilly Elegy, which all the people on one side of the spectrum think is so horrifying. He got the conversation started. So a professor from Fordham University decided to do a deep dive into what about Appalachia created a cultural construct of companies coming in here, making money, and taking the profit out of the hills and kind of leaving us with enough to live on. And you can speak to this since you're halfway through it. This guy's research goes back to England and serfs and feudal and all that stuff. And what happened is that we are a culture, and this might be our Scots-Irish roots, but we are a culture that puts up with that. That works for us because, and this may be part of the Judeo-Christian thing of sacrifice. I mean, My mother, if you complained about anything, she'd go, offer it up. I'm supposed to be hearing that. But offer it up. It's that concept, well, a little bit of suffering is good for you. Well, you know, it is. And so how do we turn that into a value that, but the importance is called ramp hollow. It's the ramp, you know, the vegetable. And he does something in, I think it's West Virginia, ramp hollow.
This is the other book that was talking about.
Yeah.
The one that was done by the lobbyist. Who
Oh, The Extremes of Virginia.
Yeah, who did
August Walmart, Eastern Shore,
Walmart.
Southern.
Eastern Shore, the southern part, and then the far southwest.
And the far southwest. I've already yelled at him about that. But yeah, far southwest. And he does a deep dive into the numbers. So that's part of all of this. We sort of have to go with our accept a certain amount of reality. And Jen, this is the thing about the local customers, back to that. The reality is people are just going to drive to Kingsport. It's just what they're going to do, you know. And so the locals. So if we focus on the customer, the target customer that we know we have and can get and can attract, it'll trickle down.
Well, the funny thing is, we have people from Kingsport coming here
Exactly.
to the brewery.
Exactly.
We have people from all over the Tri-Cities coming here.
That's like, we were down there Saturday evening, it was packed. We didn't know anybody in there.
We didn't either.
Usually we see Sarah then. But from one, like,
You know
they call that?
specials. If they can't drive them, I'll put them up. After you put them all up.
We need an Uber too.
Oh, I totally want to. I don't want to own a car. I was just whining to Kathy about that. But do you know what they call that in the city? They call that the bridge and tunnel crowd. In every city, locals do not go to restaurants on Friday and Saturday night because they don't want to deal with the suburbanites. You know, I mean, we could eventually turn into that. But our thing is, we don't have to make the money on the scale that a metropolitan. And I think people like you and like me want this lifestyle. And we don't need a lot of people who want this lifestyle. We really don't. We don't want to overpopulate these hills. We just want to fill some of the houses that are empty. And you know, this whole thing about also, the last thing I'll say, please bear with me, is that attracting large companies is just not the right thing for us right now. Because we have an opioid abuse problem. We have a workforce problem here. So the more we can do entrepreneurial things that employ, self-employ or employ a few people, that's manageable. And what we need to be arguing for is education, and we need to make sure we have access to broadband, fast internet. And that we can start teaching kids to code, like Rusty's doing over in Pikeville. I want to get him over here to start some stuff. And you know, people could make, that they can ramp it up. Those are $80,000 a year jobs at minimum. And there are companies in major metro areas, particularly in Silicon Valley, that need to outsource and find high quality coding. People who speak the language, our English and the coding language. We can do this.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I think I know the answer, but more important coming from you. Somebody can be a coder in St. Paul and work for somebody in Silicon Valley.
Correct.
If they have the
Broadband. And this is what Rusty and Lynn Parrish, his partner, that's what they discovered. But here's what Rusty says that's interesting. You know how we have call centers, which is a nice, good business? But we keep trying to replicate that and get more call centers here. Rusty says that, so these coding shops are outsourcing to Asia, to Serbia, Eastern Europe, India, China, and so, China. So, I love when the president does it. But so that's a certain quality of coding. And Rusty's like, we're not going to be the insourcing Asian coders. And that's not casting aspersions on them. It's just like, we're writing good code here. And that's what the guys from Carnegie Mellon came down and said to him, this is world-class code you're writing. And that's, Rusty wants to monetize it. He's like, I'm a capitalist. I want to make money on this. I want my people to make money on it. I want everybody, right now his focus is southeastern United States. I want anytime somebody has a website or a company has some underpinning to do with their technology, I want them to hire us to do it, provided we do the coding language that they want. That's his vision. It's not, so think about the difference between his vision and our vision, not us in this room, but our vision here in our region. Our vision is, oh please, sites, God love them, I'm glad they're here, but please, sites duplicate, come and hire 500 people to answer the phones for $8 an hour. Please, that's what we need. Let's spend all of our taxpayer economic development funds going and chasing them and cutting them a deal, and then what happens? It expires and they leave. That's not sustainable. But teach somebody to code. Mayor Bloomberg
Josh is
is a coder. You are?
I don't code, I test the code, but yes.
You're a QA.
Yeah.
You do QA.
Yeah, but what I see the trouble is, and I'd like to hear your thought is we can get that, and we're seeing this onshore, so we're America onshore. How do we get to the next step? Because you peak out at a certain point, and you're like, I work with people all over the country, and the work that we do versus somebody in Houston, Texas, Boston, Massachusetts, you know, it's on par with them, or sometimes even better. But
I want you to go visit Rusty at BidSource in Pikeville. I really want you to do that. But let me ask, are you with the company or are you self-employed?
I'm a CGI.
You're a CGI. They just did a fantastic video that featured one of his kids about, they nailed it. That's the messaging we need, is what CGI just did in that video about Southwest Virginia. They did it, but to your point, it's going to take us, thinking as a region and finding the stars in our region. I lit on Rusty Justice like white on rice, because I'm like, he's one of us. He's an hour from here, or an hour and a half from here. He is an evangelist for Appalachia. And it's to your point. He's had these people come down here and look at the code and say, you know, it's world class.
We're not getting fair market value.
What's that? That's right.
We're getting undersold. This is a cheap.
But think of it this way. Appalachia's hot right now. I mean, for crying out loud, Ron Howard's making a movie based on Hillbilly Elegy. God knows what that's going to look like. But it's hot. It's it's trendy. You know, it's trending. So how do we own that?
Who's undercutting you? Who's undercutting you? Americans or foreigners?
We're the alternative to going offshore. So there's a large push that doesn't want to be offshore. There's a quality that America gets, but there's a
mainly even people from here, we can understand you on the telephone.
Yeah.
Well, but that's it right there, but it's hot right now. There's a lot of butts in here, and I'm not trying to be Pollyanna-ish. I'm just saying that we're at the beginning of it. This thing that happened in January with this tax law, look what these companies did. Not that they couldn't have done it before, but, you know, the 250 companies up the, it's gonna keep, it's not trickle-down economics, it's what's gonna happen. Because we've made it easier for companies to stay onshore. And Pete asked, those people all feel guilty about Appalachia because they know what they've done. They know what they've done. They've psyched us out. It's not just, they've psyched us out. That's what they've done.
Just remember this though, what Walmart didn't ever give as much money. And then they got the one son who shamed them all into giving money. And then he died in a paragliding.
And the point of the story is what?
They quit giving as much money after the son died.
Well, but that's why you have to replicate it across people. And by the way, we've got a lot of coal money sitting here. We've got to start hitting those. What are they? They're sitting around playing cards with the Virginian instead of investing in some startups. And I said that to them too. You know, it's that, it's a mentality, and not everybody's gonna, it's just like, not all of our locals are gonna eat around here, not all of them are gonna invest in a startup in Appalachia. We just find the ones who can, who are, and we latch onto them, and we help them. We have to help, we have to help them. Help us. Does this, you guys, are you like totally like,
No, if anyone has any questions
Sorry,
personal, you can send them to me and I can send them on to Mary. I'm gonna put her on our resource list and.
hey, how much
you
that
can-
was on video, and don't you send that to me? All of it.
That's on PBS.
It was live.
Live stream.
It was?
Thank you.
No, that's okay. I'll okay, just so long as I know. It's going out there somewhere.
Ashley's been editing, so she'll.
Oh, good.
She'll work.
You guys, thanks so much, and thanks for what you're doing. You made my re-entry to Virginia so much fun, and this was before tonight. I just love coming here.
Thank you.
Come to our-
One of Mary's latest projects you can find on Amazon, Cooking with My Sister.
Kathy, thank you. I always forget to plug it.
And
I did write it. There are people who think I didn't write it, but I wrote it.
and it's the second edition.
That's right. Now it has my picture on the back cover. If
Yes.
you get the correct back cover, that's a whole nother story. But yeah,
I
this
should have brought
time.
mine to get it signed. I've had the
That's
other
okay, we'll
authors
do
sign,
it.
but I'll get it
Did
signed.
you notice that now it's food on the front cover
Yeah.
and not just one of the authors?
Yeah, yeah.
Not the really famous one. It wasn't me. But
Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming out
guys.
tonight. Appreciate you. I'll be emailing you this week. Thank you.
No homework? No homework?
No